And here's the band of the 1st Parachute Regiment to say so. Richard Todd, this is your life.
Richard Todd Hollywood has made countless movies about D-Day. Actors wear uniforms, they jump from airplanes, they storm beaches, they pretend to be heroes. But Richard Todd was different. Before he became a movie star, he didn't act like a paratrooper. He actually was one. On June 6, 1944, while most of the world was asleep, Richard Todd jumped from an aircraft into Nazi-occupied France as part of one of the most dangerous military operations in history. Years later, he would play a soldier in a D-Day movie. The incredible part, he was recreating events he had personally lived through. Richard Todd was born in Ireland in 1919 and spent much of his childhood in Britain. As a young man, he dreamed of becoming an actor. But history had other plans. When World War II erupted, millions of young men saw their lives change overnight. Todd joined the British Army and eventually became part of one of its most elite formations, the Parachute Regiment. These soldiers were different from ordinary infantry. They volunteered for extra danger, extra training, and missions that many considered nearly impossible. Paratroopers had to jump from aircraft behind enemy lines. They often landed far from support. If things went wrong, there would be nobody nearby to rescue them. By 1944, Allied commanders were preparing for the invasion of France. Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion ever attempted. But before soldiers could land on the beaches, someone had to secure critical positions inland. That mission belonged to the airborne troops. Among them was Richard Todd. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, Todd climbed aboard a military transport aircraft. The cabin was crowded with heavily armed paratroopers. Each man carried weapons, ammunition, supplies, and enough equipment to survive behind enemy lines. The aircraft crossed the English Channel under darkness. Nobody knew exactly what awaited them. German anti-aircraft guns filled the sky. Searchlights scanned the clouds. Enemy fighters could appear at any moment. Then came the order: jump. One by one, paratroopers disappeared into the night. Richard Todd jumped into history. Landing safely was only the beginning. The real challenge started after reaching the ground. Paratroopers were scattered across the countryside. Many landed far from their designated drop zones. Units became separated. Confusion was everywhere. Yet despite the chaos, the airborne forces achieved remarkable success. Todd's battalion fought to secure vital positions that would help protect the soldiers arriving on the beaches later that morning. Their mission was simple: hold the ground, no matter the cost. The fighting was intense. German forces launched repeated counterattacks. Every bridge, road, and village became strategically important. For airborne troops, survival depended on courage, training, and determination. Richard Todd experienced all of it firsthand. He wasn't reading about history. He was helping create it. One of the most famous objectives of D-Day involved the capture of key bridges that could allow Allied forces to advance deeper into France. Airborne soldiers played a crucial role in securing these positions before the main invasion force arrived. Without their success, thousands more soldiers might have died on the beaches. The operation remains one of the greatest military achievements ever accomplished, and Richard Todd was there from the beginning. When the war finally ended, he returned home like countless other veterans. The world had changed. So had he. Now he faced a new challenge: building a career. Acting soon became his focus. Unlike many aspiring actors, Todd brought something unique to every role: authenticity. He understood fear. He understood sacrifice. He understood leadership under pressure, because he had experienced them all. His breakthrough arrived in 1949 with The Hasty Heart. The performance earned him international recognition and an Academy Award nomination. Suddenly, Richard Todd became one of Britain's biggest stars. But fate had one final surprise waiting for him. In 1962, Hollywood released The Longest Day, a massive film depicting the events of D-Day. The production included some of the biggest actors in the world, and among them stood Richard Todd, a man who had actually fought during the invasion. Imagine how strange that must have felt, walking onto a movie set, seeing cameras, watching actors recreate scenes from the most dangerous day of your life. For many cast members, it was entertainment. For Todd, it was memory. The explosions, the uniforms, the parachutes. They weren't props from a script. They were reminders of reality. Few actors in history have ever portrayed events they personally experienced in combat. Richard Todd belongs to that very small group. His story represents something rare, a bridge between history and Hollywood, a man who first lived the adventure and later performed it on screen. Today, many people remember Richard Todd as an accomplished actor, but history remembers something even greater, a young paratrooper who jumped into darkness on D-Day and helped change the course of World War II. Before Richard Todd became a movie star, he was already a real hero, and unlike most war films, his greatest performance happened long before any camera started rolling. David Niven. Imagine you're a rising Hollywood star. Your movies are becoming popular. Your future looks bright. Studios are offering opportunities that millions only dream about. Then one day, war breaks out. What would you do? For David Niven, the answer was immediate. He walked away from Hollywood, left fame behind, and returned to military service. While other actors continued making films, David Niven chose a battlefield, and that decision would earn him respect far beyond the world of cinema. David Niven was born in London in 1910. From an early age, he displayed qualities that would later make him famous. He was charming, confident, intelligent, and remarkably calm under pressure. Before becoming an actor, Niven attended the Royal Military College at Sandhurst. For Britain, Sandhurst is one of the most prestigious military academies in the world. It has trained generations of officers and leaders. The education there was demanding. Discipline was everything. Cadets were expected to lead by example and remain composed in difficult situations. These lessons stayed with Niven throughout his life. After graduating, he served as an officer in the British Army. However, military life wasn't where he saw his future. Eventually, he left active service and pursued acting. By the late 1930s, his Hollywood career was beginning to take shape. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. Then Europe exploded into war. In September 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. Britain declared war shortly afterward. Suddenly, millions of people faced a choice: continue their normal lives or answer the call of duty. For David Niven, there was never any doubt. While many actors remained in Hollywood, Niven immediately returned to Britain. He rejoined the military. At the time, some people thought he was making a mistake. After all, Hollywood offered safety. Military service offered danger. But Niven believed his responsibility came first. Years later, people would admire him for exactly that reason. He wasn't pretending to be brave for a movie role. He was brave when it truly mattered. As the war intensified, Niven rose through the ranks. Eventually, he became a lieutenant colonel. That is a highly respected leadership position. His responsibilities extended far beyond ordinary military duties. He became involved with specialized reconnaissance and operational planning. Reconnaissance units performed some of the most important work in modern warfare. Their mission was to gather information before major operations occurred. A commander who understands the battlefield has a huge advantage. A commander who lacks information can make deadly mistakes. Men involved in reconnaissance often worked close to enemy positions. The work required intelligence, patience, and courage. Niven's calm personality made him especially effective. Unlike action movies, real military operations are often won through planning rather than gunfire. Good information saves lives, and that information must come from somewhere. As Allied forces prepared to liberate Europe, military planning reached an enormous scale. The upcoming invasion of France would require unprecedented coordination. Thousands of ships, thousands of aircraft, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Every detail mattered. David Niven's service placed him within the larger effort that helped make victory possible. Shortly after D-Day, he arrived in France. The fighting remained intense. German forces were still resisting fiercely. Entire towns had become battlefields. Roads were filled with military vehicles. Aircraft constantly moved overhead. The danger was very real. Yet Niven never sought publicity. In fact, many people back in Hollywood barely understood the extent of his service. That humility became one of his defining characteristics. Unlike some celebrities, he rarely exaggerated his achievements. He simply did what he believed was right. When the war ended in 1945, Niven returned to acting, but something had changed. He was no longer just another actor trying to become famous. He was a decorated veteran who had chosen service over comfort. Audiences respected him for that, and it showed in his career. Over the following decades, David Niven became one of Britain's most beloved actors. His elegant personality and natural charm made him a perfect leading man. He starred in numerous successful films and eventually won an Academy Award for Separate Tables. Yet fame never seemed to define him. People who knew Niven often described him as modest, witty, and genuinely kind. Perhaps that perspective came from his wartime experiences. After witnessing conflict and sacrifice, Hollywood probably seemed less important. His military service also gave him credibility that few actors possessed. When David Niven portrayed courage on screen, audiences believed it, because they knew he had demonstrated courage in real life. That authenticity cannot be taught, it cannot be rehearsed, and it cannot be faked. Today, David Niven is remembered as one of the most charming stars in cinema history. But behind the polished smile and sophisticated image stood something even more impressive. A man who willingly left success behind when his country needed him. Many actors have played heroes. David Niven became one before the cameras were rolling. When history called, he didn't hesitate. He answered. Peter Butterworth, a man who made Britain laugh for decades, was once a Nazi prisoner of war, trapped behind enemy lines, and yet he refused to give up. This is the story of Peter Butterworth. Underscore. Most people remember Peter Butterworth as the lovable, bumbling funny man from the Carry On films. He appeared in 16 of them, always smiling, always harmless, always good for a laugh. But behind that gentle face was a war story that will leave you speechless. During World War II, Peter Butterworth served as a lieutenant in the Royal Navy's Fleet Air Arm. On June 21, 1940, during a bombing raid on a German-occupied airbase off the coast of Holland, his aircraft was shot down by Messerschmitt fighters. One crew member was killed. Butterworth was captured and became a prisoner of war. But that was only the beginning. Underscore. He escaped once through a tunnel, walking 27 miles over 3 days, before a member of the Hitler Youth recaptured him. He was then sent to Stalag Luft 3rd, the same infamous camp that inspired 2 Hollywood films, The Wooden Horse and The Great Escape. Butterworth was involved in both real escape plots inside that camp. He had never performed in public before, but inside the camp he got on stage and performed comedy shows. The booing and noise from the crowd covered the sounds of prisoners digging escape tunnels underneath. He was not just surviving, he was fighting back, with laughter. Now here is the part that is almost too strange to believe. When the film The Wooden Horse was being cast in 1949, a movie about the very escape Butterworth had taken part in, he auditioned for a role. He was rejected. The filmmakers said he did not look convincingly heroic or athletic enough. The real hero turned down for not looking like a hero. Underscore. Inside that prison camp, Butterworth had formed a close friendship with a fellow prisoner named Talbot Rothwell, who would later go on to write many of the Carry On films that made Butterworth famous. A friendship born in a Nazi prison camp led to one of Britain's greatest comedy careers. Peter Butterworth made the whole country laugh. But first, he made sure his fellow prisoners could escape. Comedian, lieutenant, survivor, heroes.